Are you a rental property owner? I am. Are you thinking about selling your rental property or properties? That can be a difficult question moving forward because there are so many different moving parts. We're going to talk about the 5 different reasons when it makes sense to sell your rental, starting right now. Hello and welcome. My name is Albert Pereira, but you can call me Al. I am a veteran realtor of 25 years living in beautiful Kamloops, British Columbia, and I too own rental properties. In this video, we're going to discuss the difficult question about whether or not you should sell your rental or rentals. And I know there's a lot of conflicting advice out there, but there are 5 very valid reasons when it makes sense to sell your rentals. Now, before we get started, please be reminded that I have a passion for selling real estate. And when it comes to helping buyers and sellers of investment property, I have many years of experience and a lot of my own hard-earned experience in the rental business as well. So if you're looking to sell your rental property, please reach out to me in the show notes below or at the end of this video for my contact information. I'll be able to provide you with a free market evaluation and a plan to maximize the return on your investment for the rental properties you decide to put onto the market, and I'll be happy to discuss that with you when you reach out to me. Let's get started. Number 1, in terms of reasons when it makes sense to sell your rental property, is that the property is cash flow negative and you are contributing constantly to maintaining the property or maintaining the overall costs of keeping the property because the property is cash flow negative. Now, I know this is a common strategy in a lot of larger cities, but in Kamloops, most of the investors I've ever worked with were in cash flow positive situations. But if you're constantly subsidizing your renter in the hopes that huge capital gains will come down the road, you may want to consider selling your property, especially if it has already appreciated a great deal and you feel that that appreciation might be something you want to take advantage of now. But holding a cash flow negative property when you feel like a lot of the appreciation has come and you don't see a lot of appreciation on the horizon, that's a good time to consider selling. Number 2 is when you've had such tremendous appreciation of your rental property that the cap rate has changed. So for instance, if you bought a house in Kamloops for $100,000 many years ago, and the rent at that time was $800 or $900, and your cap rate, that is the return on your investment, was somewhere in the neighborhood of between 7 and 8% after expenses, then you're getting a great return on investment. But perhaps you have the same home now and it's worth $500,000 and you're only getting $1,500 for rent. That means your cap rate is far lower than when you started out, and you have a lot of capital gains and appreciation that you can cash in on if you choose to do so. Now, does it make sense to sell when you've got all this appreciation on the table? It does, but only if you're looking to make your estate more easy to transfer to your heirs, or if you've got somewhere else to deploy the money at a higher rate of return. So keep in mind that the cap rate that you bought originally is perhaps not the cap rate that you have now because the property has appreciated a great deal. Now that's a good problem to have, but you have to accept the fact that the cap rate that you had then is no longer the cap rate and return that you're getting now on the money that's tied up in that property. Stepping up and redeploying, and this is one of my favorite strategies, in that if you're a smaller landlord and you're looking to step up, perhaps you have a condominium now and it's not cash flow positive, and you want to step up into a duplex or a fourplex, and your chances of being cash flow positive are far greater there, well then it makes sense to perhaps step up and sell the condo. Now, if you're more of a landlord with lots of different properties, that is in the 3 to 5 range, you might want to sacrifice selling 3 or 5 of your rentals and buying an apartment block. 15 units is preferable or higher, and this is a strategy that I have used in the past with great success, and I'm very happy to own those assets now. Now, remember that a lot of owners of rentals are absolutely livid about the thought of selling rental properties, and I get that. I understand that because a lot of them are great performers, but some of them are not so great performers, and there are some terminal problems, some location problems, some issues, some things that just don't make it convenient to own as a rental anymore. Well, you might want to sacrifice that soldier or two and get yourself a king or a queen in terms of more units under one roof, because then you don't have to worry about 5 different furnaces, 5 roofs, 5 fences, and the yard maintenance on 5 different smaller rental properties. You buy one apartment block, you have one boiler, you have a caretaker on site to handle day-to-day problems, you have one fence, one roof, and when you go to your building, that's all of your rentals, and you have a little office there in case you need to do something. So leveling up always makes sense, especially if it makes sense to you at that time in your life or for estate planning. Now, if you need to redeploy the money into another investment altogether that's outside of real estate, which is going to be high returning, that makes sense too. But be careful. Don't get out of something that you understand into something you don't understand where you lose a lot of money. The fourth reason that can make sense for when you should consider selling your rentals is you're an out-of-town owner, and the property management and ongoing issues with your rental or rentals in your out-of-town market is no longer favorable, or it's getting to be too much of a hassle. And sometimes at distance, your property managers don't seem to do as much due diligence in terms of their tenants because you're not close by, or they're not doing a good job filling vacancies. And when they do, the tenants are not great. This is a common theme and problem that I've heard from many out-of-town landlords, and perhaps you're experiencing the same issue. But if you see that the market that you have invested in is no longer appreciating or doesn't have a great future, you may want to consider redeploying that money once you sell that rental into other investments or into rental investments closer to home, where you have a much better idea of the market overall and costs for repairs, maintenance, and tenant turnovers. But no one's going to take care of your money more than you will. So if you can get closer in terms of keeping your rentals closer to where you live, you'll find that it's a big improvement to your overall returns moving forward. Number 5, and the last item on the list of reasons to consider why you should sell your rental property, is regulatory changes. And in British Columbia, with this new government, we have learned that many of the Residential Tenancy Act rules have changed, and they are in favor of the tenants. And this includes how much you can raise the rent every year, because they're tying it to inflation. And as we know, the inflation numbers that were given in many cases are not reality. So the last time we were allowed to raise rent was set at 1.4%, and that was rescinded during COVID-19 so that there would be no increases allowed at all on existing tenants. Now, if you feel moving forward that 1.4% or in that range is fine for you as a landlord to increase your revenue versus your expenses, then you're probably in the minority, because most of us have found out that our expenses are running far higher in terms of increases than 1.4%. For instance, in Vancouver, property taxes alone have increased somewhere in the neighborhood of about 18% in the last 3 years. And you've seen a lot of property, rental property come onto the market for sale as a result. Now, we don't know what the future tenancy rules and laws are going to be, but they are increasingly in the tenants' favor, because there are a lot more tenants than there are rental property owners, and they are voters. So there is a rental crisis. That's the way it's been described, because there's not a lot of rentals out there in BC. And I think a lot of these regulations and rules have made it so that a lot of landlords have gotten out of the rental game, and this has put pressure on rentals altogether, because it's less and less profitable, and the less profitable you make it, the fewer rental units are going to be built. So you need to consider regulatory changes in terms of keeping your investment and whether or not it's going to be a worthwhile investment moving forward over the long term. Now, before you click on the next YouTube video, stop. Do not sell your rental properties until you talk to your accountant, because you might have many, many years of large capital gains on your rental properties, and you need to be aware of the tax implications. And you cannot pull the trigger on selling those rentals until you're aware of those full implications. So call your accountant before you pull the trigger. I had a great time making this video. I love talking about investment real estate and real estate overall, and I love talking to other landlords. If I can help you out in any way, please reach out to me in the show notes below or at the end of this video. Thank you for watching.